We continue now at the top of Daf Samech Amud Aleph in Meseches Nazir. This is Nazir Daf 60a. On the previous Amud, the Mishnah said, let's say you have a situation of a Nazir, and it's a suffix whether he's a confirmed Mitzorah, and also a suffix whether he's Tamei Meis. So he has to essentially serve the Nazirus 4 times, assuming it's a 30-day Nazirus. So it's going to take 60 days for him to eliminate the possibility that he's a Mitzorah, then he can have Kachim, and then it's going to take 120 days for him to be able to have wine and eliminate the possibility that he is a Nazir. And the Gemara says, Tana was taught, this is from a Tosefta, Ba'med Devarim Amurim bin Nazirus Muetas. What's our mission talking about? It's talking about, again, when he has a 30-day Nazirus, so he has to do 120 days, he has to do 30 days 4 times. Avol ben Nazirus Bas Shana, but let's say he had a Nazirus that was supposed to be a year, and this also was quoted earlier, so then you're just going to do a year and multiply by 4. Again, Ochel bekachim la'achar shtei shanim, he eats kachim after 2 years. That's when he eliminates the possibility that he is a Mitzorah. It takes 2 shavings to eliminate that possibility. That's the 2 years. V'shosa yayin u'metami l'meisim li'achar arba shanim, and he's able to drink wine, and he's able to become tamei meis after 4 years, again, because it's the 1 year times 4. And the Gemara continues, V'tani alon, we learned on this, Umegaleach arba tiglachios, he's going to end up shaving 4 times. And the Gemara explains which karbanos he's going to bring at each time that he shaves. Tiglachas rishonin, the first time he shaves, mevi tziporim, he's going to bring birds. V'chatas sa'of, he's also going to bring the carbon chatas, the bird carbon chatas. V'olas behem, and I'll also bring a carbon ola, which is an animal. Shnia, the second time he shaves, mevi chatas sa'of, he's going to bring the chatas sa'of. V'olas behema, and the olas behema, he will not bring the tziporim. Shlishas, the third time, mevi chatas sa'of, v'olas behema, the same thing. He's going to bring the chatas sa'of and the olas behema, and revius maybe carbon tahara, and then in the fourth one, he's going to bring the carbon that a nazir brings when he concludes his nazirus in purity, and the Gemara will explain the various stages, the various karbanos. And the Gemara continues, Amrit teglachas rishon maybe v'chulu. So what did we say? We said that the first time he shaves, he brings the birds, and he brings the chatas sa'of, and he brings the olas behema. And the Gemara explains, Mimanavshach, this is going to work no matter what. Shaper kamaisi, whatever he brings is going to be effective. And the Gemara explains how so. The ivadai mitzorahu. Let's say this individual, he is a suffix whether he's a mitzorah or not. If he actually is a mitzorah, v'lav tamehu, and let's say he's not tameh, so let's say he's essentially a nazir tahor who's a mitzorah. So then what we'll say is as follows: tziporin chovaso, the tziporin, the birds that he's bringing, that is what a mitzorah brings, and that's fulfilling his obligation as a mitzorah. The chata sa'of, now the chata sa'of, which he now does not need, because the chata sa'of is generally needed for a nazir tameh, so that's the chata sa'of suffix. That's what's called a chata sa'of that's brought in doubt. So azla l'kvura, so that's going to be buried. That is what you do in general with a chata sa'of that is a suffix. Va'ola have a nedava, and then the carbon that he's bringing is just going to be a nedava. It's just going to be a donation because he's not yet taking care of anything in terms of the nazirus. He's just taking care of the birds that are brought as a mitzorah. And the Gemara explains, well, why can't we just shave him within the 7 days? Why do we have to wait to shave a second time? And to that, the Gemara says you can't do that. The deal malav muchlatu, because maybe he's really not a confirmed mitzorah, and therefore the only time that a nazir is allowed to shave while he is a nazir mitzorah is if we know for sure that he's a mitzorah. But here you have a suffix. V'rachmon amr, because the pasuk says tar lo yavra al rosho ad malos. It says he's not allowed to have a razor on his head until he concludes the days of his nazirus. And so therefore, since there's that possibility that he's not a confirmed mitzorah, he's not allowed to shave. And the Gemara continues and explains, V'lav mitzorah v'adei havin. Now let's say this individual is not actually a mitzorah, v'hu tamei, and let's say he is a nazir tamei. So then it's going to work as follows. Chata sa'of chovaso, this chata sa'of that he's bringing, that's his obligation for being a nazir tamei. V'tziporin avroi kamis avdin, and the tziporin of a mitzorah in general, they're done outside of the Beis HaMikdash. V'lo have chulin bazar. It's not considered a violation of bringing chulin in the azara, so that's not a problem. And again, v'olas behema have a nedava. The olas behema, that will be a nedava, that will be a donation, because at this point in time, he's not taking care of the nazirus b'tahara. And finally, the Gemara says, "V'ilav mitzorahu v'lav tamehu." Now, let's say he's not a mitzorah and he's not tameh. So really, all he is a regular nazir tahor. So tziporin again, avroi kamisavdin. The birds are being brought outside the Beis Hamikdash. It's not a problem of chulin ba'azara. Chata sa'of l'kvura. The chata sa'of is not a problem. That will be buried like a chata sa'of besafik. And finally, olas behema have chovaso. The olas behema, that will be his regular obligation. The concluding carbon of a nazir that is tahor. But the Gemara continues, V'haboy asham, but doesn't he have to bring a carbon asham? And Rashi explains, V'hakaboy suye asham mitzora b'teglachas shniya, means to say a mitzora, when he does his second shaving, he needs to bring a carbon asham. V'asham b'mitzora v'adei ma'akev b'achilaso, and certainly the carbon asham of a mitzora, it is ma'akev, he's not able to eat kachim until he actually brings that asham. So how does he fulfill that requirement? And to that the Gemara answers Rabbi Shimon. The Gemara says we're following Rabbi Shimon over here, that it is possible to bring this carbon asham on a tanai, on a condition. Diyamar ma'isiu masni. He says that you can bring the carbon asham and you can make a condition that if the carbon asham is not actually required, it should just be a carbon shlamim. And the Gemara continues, Teglachas shniya ushlishis, now on the second and third shaving, tziporin lo tzarech, the birds are no longer required, to ha'avid, because they've already been taken care of on the first shaving. Ma'ika, so what is left? Dilma vaday mochlatu. What's left is maybe he is certainly a confirmed mitzora, and chadal afik svara v'chadal afik tumaso. And then when he's bringing the bird carbon chatas, one will take care of that carbon that he has to bring, the second shaving of mitzora, and the other one will take care of the carbon that has to be brought by a nazir who is tameh. And Rashi explains, what is there that this individual needs to bring as a carbon? The possibilities are as follows. Dilma muchlet, who maybe he is a confirmed mitzora v'lo tamei, and he's not a nazir tamei. But teglachas rishona also loli mechiluto. So that first shaving, that was the first shaving of mitzora. But teglachas shniya zuhi shalimei svaro. And then the second shaving, that was the second shaving of mitzora, the one that's for the days of his counting. But sarach lahavi carbon mitzora, and therefore he does need to bring the carbon of a mitzora. Lahachi udamar delaisi chatas of, beteglachas shniya uveteglachas shlishis. That's the reason why he brings a chatas of on both the second and the third shaving. Chadal asafik chiluto, one takes care of the possibility that he might be a mitzora. V'chadal asafik tuma deniziris, and one takes care of the possibility that he's a nazir tamei. Again, in that second shaving, there's the possibility he's a mitzora, and the chatas of is for that carbon that he brings at the time of his second shaving during the days of his counting. And Rashi goes on and addresses the question, V'im Tomar, if you're going to ask, if he is a mitzora, it's not actually a chatas ha'of, it's a chatas behema, v'lo bechatas ha'of, it's not a chatas ha'of, ilav de lahaviani, unless he's poor, lefisha ein chatas behema ba'al ha'safik, because, so the answer is that a chatas behema you can't bring in a situation of doubt, lefisha ein nechelas misafik, because that can't be eaten in a situation of doubt, v'havelo kechatas sheneschapru ba'aleha, u'mitzar la'isuya, it's like a chatas where the owner already had a kapara, you can't bring it, lefisha ein mevim kadshim, leveis hapsul, so tikun rabbanan, so that's why the rabbanan say over here, Shehei Kosev called Nechasav La'acherim, he writes over all his property to others, V'havi Ani, he gets the status of an Ani, or maybe Chatas Of HaBal HaSafik, and he brings this Chatas Of, which can be brought in situations of doubt. And the Gemara continues to Glachas Revius, and when it comes to that fourth shaving, so then maybe Karban Tahara, he brings the Karbanos that are brought at the conclusion of a Nazirus B'Tahara, a Nazirus impurity, Umasni, and he makes the appropriate conditions. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Amud Beis.